So number 9 says negative 1. Everyone should be writing this down. Less than or equal to negative 4m.
I already did number 9.
So copy it down anyways. Less than or equal to 16. Okay? Now, these, if I cover up, which you won't see this on tonight on the video, but if I cover this thing up, you guys are all really confident in doing this, right? And if I cover this up, you guys are all really confident in doing this half. So you technically can write it as 2 separate problems.
Isn't that what Aubrey did?
That's what Aubrey did.
Can we do this on a test too?
Yep. Okay? And all the and is saying is that these things are together, right? It's negative 1 is less than or equal to negative 4, and that negative 4m is less than or equal to 16. Yes?
Why in yesterday's homework it said or?
Because there are some ors. We talked about this yesterday when we did mountain math. When you have the and symbol and you have to graph it, you know that you are graphing and it's trapped when it's an and. Always. All of your graphs will be trapped when it's an and. When the m is trapped between 2, we call it an and it's trapped on a number line. When it's an or, your number line has the dots, and the or, takes it.
Still good. It's because your things.
The or takes it to the outsides. Always, 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 always. And you never, ever, ever have a system. I shouldn't have done that one. You never, ever have a system where it's like this. Never. If you get that, you know you've done it wrong. Okay? So, we have it trapped here. It's trapped between this inequality and this inequality, which means on a number line, it's trapped between 2 numbers. Okay? So that's how you can always tell. That and, the or is going to give us this situation here, with it going to the outside. Okay, now you can solve it 2 ways. You can solve it by splitting it up and putting the and in the middle, and solve it as 2 separate problems. How do I get my m alone?
Divide.
Divide by
Negative 4.
-4. Okay? If I divide by negatives across an inequality, what's the rule? It switches signs. So automatically this is going to change. Negative 4 divided by negative 4 makes a 1. So I'm left with an m. And negative 1 divided by negative 4 gives me 1/4. Okay, that's one part to my answer. I can graph it now, or I can graph it later. I'm going to wait, because I don't know what my other number is going to be yet, so why make my slashes and screw things up? So I'm just going to wait. So I want to solve this other half. How do I get m alone?
Divide by negative 4.
Divide by negative 4. Divide by negative 4. So I have an equivalent form of 1. I'm left with an m. I divided by a negative on both sides of my inequality, so I have to switch my sign. 16 divided by negative 4 is negative 4. Now I have my 2 numbers. 1 is a negative 4. 1 is a positive 1/4. 0 is in here somewhere, right? Do you all agree?
Yeah.
We know it should look like this. We know that. So we could just draw it, but we could also check it and make sure we actually did the math correct. Okay? What kind of a symbol goes on my 1/4?
Closed circle.
Closed circle. What goes on my negative 4?
Closed.
Closed circle. Now, test the point. I threw a third number right in the middle. Test it. If I put a 0 for an m, is 1/4 greater than 0?
Yes.
Yes. That means I shade towards that 0. If I plug in that 0 for this problem, is 0 greater than or equal to negative 4?
Yes.
Yes. So I shade towards my 0. And now my solution set are all the numbers in between here. Tanner,
In the book, it says the answer's completely different.
what answer does it give?
It
It
gives.
says it backwards. It's not totally different.
Is.
What does it say, Tanner?
It says negative 4, and then greater than or equal to
Okay.
M greater or
So do I have that? Do I have negative 4 is greater than, because M is in the middle here, right? Negative 4 is less than M, right? Which is less than the 1/4, yes? Now, when I pulled it apart, I have two separate pieces, right? But you have to kind of put them back together because it's an and problem. It's supposed to look like this up here. So really, I'm going to erase because I'm out of space here. I'm going to erase this for now. Okay, so our graph was correct, but our writing for our algebra sentence is wrong. Well, it's just not fully correct. So it has to be recombined. So you say 1/4 is greater than or equal to M. M, which is the same thing, so I can leave it, is greater than or equal to negative 4. Now the book wrote it differently, and this is why. Because I got a negative 4 on the right side, but on a number line, the negative 4 is on the left side. So they switch it, and they say it should be written as negative 4 is less than or equal to M, which is less than or equal to 1/4. And all I'm doing is reading it from right to left now. It's the same thing, but this one is written in correct format because it goes from low to high. Does that make sense? Okay, let's do another one. Let's do 12. Okay, number 12 says negative 15 is less than or equal to 5 times the quantity, 3p plus 2. Is it plus 2? No, it's 3p minus 2. So I'm just going to change it to a negative up here. Okay? Less than 20. Now this time, it's still an and problem. Can you see why? It's trapped. The P is in between two inequality signs. And guess what? Or problems always have the word or. Always. If it doesn't have the word or, it's an and problem. So we know that this graph should look like this, right? Okay, so that's what we're going for. I'm not going to split it into two separate pieces. I'm going to show you how to do it as one piece. Okay? So one piece says I have to solve this by GEMDOS before I can start pulling anything away. So I'm going to leave my 15 less than or equal to, and I'm going to distribute my 5. So I get 15p plus a negative 10 less than 20. Now I can start pulling pieces away from the p to isolate it. So I'm going to add a 10 to get it gone here. But if I add a 10 to the middle section, what do I have to do? I have to add it to both other sides. I added 10 to the middle, and so if this was a problem like this, I would add it over here. And if it was a problem like this, I would add it over here. So I just do it as 3 steps at once. And negative 15 plus 10 is negative 5. Keep my sign. I still have a 15p. Keep my sign. 20 plus 10 is 30. Now what, Tanner? How do I get p alone?
Divide.
By
15.
By 15. And if I do it to the middle section, I have to do it to each of the other sections. Negative 5 divided by 15 is negative 5/15, or reduced, it's negative 1/3, less than or equal to p, because this makes an equivalent form of 1.
Don't you have to switch the sign?
Did I divide by a negative? No. 30 divided by 15 is 2. And that's my answer. And look, it's low to high. So when I graph it, it should work out. So I have negative 1/3 as a point, and I have 2 as a point. Negative 1/3, what kind of dot? Closed. Positive 2? Open. And test a point. What falls in between negative 1/3 and 2? Give me a number, like a 0, okay, or a 1. So plug in 0. If p is 0, is negative 1/3 less than or equal to 0? Yes. So I shade towards the 0. If 0 less than 2,
Yes.
yes. So I shade towards the 0. And now I end up with these as my solution sets. Okay? Questions?